my name is Joseph Carlson. This is the Grief of Politics, episode 54. I had to do some research. It's been a bit, Avin. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Yourself?
Good. I don't good broadly. I think maybe I had a big epiphany reading about all this stuff today. What do you think? We always plan this, and I'm like, you know what we're gonna do next episode, Avin? You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do X, Y, and Z, and then we.
Something totally different than we originally planned.
And then
big bombshell news is going to happen.
God, and it's this. So broadly, I know initially we talked like a week ago, and you were like, "Oh yeah, like Iran is working on a nuclear bomb," and I was like, "I mean, sure." Now that you've had like a week really of like these ups and downs in the news. And maybe you've read a little bit more, heard more. Has anything about your position changed? I'm not saying that you say we should go to war with Iran. I'm just saying, initially it was like all the news coming out, and you're like, they're doing it, man. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like we DEFCON 4, whatever. I don't know.
So, I mean, I don't think I'm too far out and to left field, and I think you're probably right there with me on the stance that I'm very firm on, that Iran should not have nuclear weapons.
Right.
Now, you and I in our conversations have brought up, but Israel does, so like, why shouldn't Iran? And Israel shouldn't either. Really, honestly,
yeah,
I'm a very strong proponent of nuclear deproliferation.
Yep.
Of which the world has slowed down on over the last decade, which is a sad and scary thing for me.
I would say slow down as being generous, but yes, I know what you mean. Like, we don't talk about it anymore. It's just everybody's got
like the United States and other countries have started testing weapons again.
Pakistan has a nuclear.
Yeah.
Yeah. North Korea.
I mean, if we're honest, right, a nuclear weapon is a massive deterrent. If Iran developed a nuclear weapon and was like forthright with like, hey, we have a nuke, leave us the F alone, I think they'd get a lot more respect. The problem is that Iran has for a couple of decades now been a state sponsor for a lot of organizations that the majority of the world would see as terrorist organizations. Some would see as freedom fighters or rebels, but in the interest of the United States, me as an American and our allies, they're militant terrorists in a lot of ways. Now, I mean, you could argue that position on Hamas or Hezbollah, and what's Israel's responsibility, but that's not what we're here for. Well, it kind of is what we're here for today.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But on Iran specifically, right? Like, I don't want a war. I don't want the United States involved in a war. With a little bit more details and kind of going through the articles you shared and some of the other stuff I've seen over the last week or so, right? Like, this really to me looks like Netanyahu saw Trump and Iran sitting around a table, maybe not Trump himself, but like negotiators, United States.
Oh, Witkoff, yeah, probably Witkoff.
Making progress on a deal, on another deal, and I think that Netanyahu was like, I've got to stop this before it begins.
There's a deal.
Very much the same way I think Hamas attacked on October 7th, because they saw the deal coming with Israel and Saudi Arabia, and they were like, no, we can't normalize relations here.
Well, there is that reading.
Those are my opinions.
Yeah, there is that reading. There's a reading also that, one of the videos we're going to share, because I wanted to start incorporating video a little bit more. I just have a small clip from a longer podcast. The guy, Ben Rhodes, who is the assistant, or he was the deputy assistant, like national security advisor to President Obama.
So liberal hippie.
Right. Anyway, like I said on the phone, whatever you think about his politics, he did the job, right? And I guess he wrote a book where he's been critical of Obama, apparently, in the book. Not like, the administration and like their proliferation of their policy. So he does actually self-reflect and say, like, maybe we didn't do the best we could have done. And like, but I like him because a lot of people like Tim Miller with Bulwark will say this. It's a Bulwark clip. Like you actually talk like a human being when you talk about this stuff. You don't talk about, like a diplomatic corpo speak. Like, we understand when you're talking about human beings. We get what you're saying. And I think he lays out like a pretty good assessment of what's going on. I'll say this, from everything I've read, Israel did attack Iran first, and so
I think that's pretty well non-contested.
as a whatever I think of Iran and the regime in Iran and how they treat people, they are a country, and when a sovereign country attacks
They're a
another
nation
country,
state.
yeah, when Israel, another country, attacks them, I could see where they could be like, hey man, like what the heck? What are we supposed to do? We just gonna sit here? We're just gonna sit here while you just keep bombing us? So
I
I'll
mean, a little bit different in scale and scope and how it was done, but I mean, right, like many of us, including myself, were really up in arms about Russia attacking Ukraine unprovoked. One
right,
nation state attacking another nation state in war of aggression.
right,
I think slightly different in that um, there is a broad belief that Iran has been working towards developing nuclear weapons, despite the fact that they've said they're not. But there's a very degree of belief in how far away they are from it, including within our own intelligence services.
yeah, and I guess the head of it's a long acronym I can never pronounce. It's like the whatever. It's in this article here from Global Conflict Tracker, which I thought was like the most middle of the road thing I could look at. Anyway, the IAEA, the IAEA, like
International Atomic Energy Association
yeah, the
or
the
agency.
the head of that agency was on CNN last night, and I didn't pull that for the episode, but he basically was talking, the audio. He said, "Listen, all the inspections we did at the time and everything that we saw, to the best of our ability, they were a year away." Like, or he said, farther than a year away, and he goes, they still have to produce a warhead. Like, they're not as far down the road as everybody is saying, and that's to the best of our ability. And like a lot of people pointed out, I don't know if Ben Rose is going to get to it in this clip, but so say this. I'm just going to lay this scenario out. You were sitting at the table with the United States, and you're coming to some kind of, with Witkoff, you're negotiating for whatever percentage enrichment. Witkoff said zero, then we kind of softened and said, okay, 3%, 6%, whatever. Iran said, hey, we're not going to take zero, but they're talking anyway, right? These negotiations are going on. Then Israel bombs them. Now, there's been a lot of scuttlebutt in the background. It's like Trump's like, I didn't know. Oh, I kind of knew. I don't know. Now, people have laid this out, so I'm not, this isn't like independent thought. I've just been like you listening to all this, listening to podcasts. Imagine if you're Iran and you're like, okay, well, we came to the table. We didn't see eye to eye, but we were negotiating. Now, one of our enemy states, has bombed us. And now, if I'm reading reports correctly from our intelligence and even the United States, you guys kind of knew it was going to happen. So now I'm sitting at the table in good faith to negotiate. You've allowed one of your proxy nation states to bomb me. And now you're like, well, we kind of knew. It's like, okay, so I wasn't like, I had a 5% chance of maybe making a nuclear bomb. Now I am going to make a nuclear bomb because I can't trust anybody because I came in good faith. These people bombed me. They took out my scientists, which, you could talk about that. But like Ben Rhodes points out later in the interview, he's like, yeah, they're trying to pick off these people like it's a militia, like it's a terrorist organization. This is a government. So like if this government falls, who's going to take over? Like he said, he was talking about somebody. He goes, I heard they were like, yeah, we want a democratic people, in Iran. We want people to have freedom. He goes, yeah, so would I. But like where? Where are they? Who's going to take over? We went through all this with Iraq. Oh man, we topple Saddam. It'll be roses and puppies. And it wasn't, for like 10 plus years. It was hard. And so my whole thing is like, hey man, like I can't believe I'm saying this, but I agree with Tucker Carlson. Like, what are we doing? Like, do you really want to escalate this to a thing to like, once we drop that, that bunker buster bomb on that Forab, that mountain that's in the article.
Assuming we do.
Yeah. What do you think Iran's going to do? Do you think they're going to surrender? Like, I don't think so.
So it goes both ways, right? Like even Ben Rhodes in this video. So I watched this video earlier today, and we'll get to it, or maybe we won't get to that segment. But one of the things he brings up is right, like we gamed it, we went through it, and there's the scenario where like we damage all the facilities, we set them back for a year, 2 years, whatever, but they just go deeper underground and they get more secretive and they hide even more from us and they continue their work. Or potentially they throw their hands in the air and say, okay, fine, we're done. We're not doing it anymore. Just,
Right. Right.
leave. Let us do our own thing. Leave. Um, and that could happen. I mean, it could really go
Either way.
a bunch of different ways. Uh, you know, I think the Tucker Carlson interview, like for me, was enlightening. Actually, like much like Ted Cruz, had no idea how large Iran's population is.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I was going to rant, but go ahead. Go ahead.
90 million people is
It's not Iraq.
more than half the size of Japan.
Yeah.
Or 92 is what Tucker said. So say it's 92 million, right? The United States is 340 mil. So they're a little bit less than a third of the United States in population. That is not a small country.
That's not Iraq either. Like that, you know what I mean? That's not,
I don't know the census data for sure, but like I have a feeling that's larger than many European countries.
Yeah.
In fact, probably most.
Yeah.
UK is only 70.
Yeah.
69.
Nice.
Let's see. Germany's 85. Like, so Iran is larger than Germany.
Yeah. Well, here's my rant. And this goes to the conversation we've been having a long time about
Rant away, Joe. I've already had mine.
2.0 and Trump 2.0. The idea that now, you and I, yes, we have a political show. You got to be plugged in a little bit. But it seems like now I have to be an expert in everything. Like, I don't have to be an expert, but I have to read up on stuff, right? And I think if you care about democracy or care about the country you live in, you got to do this. And it's so tiring to be like, okay, well, Trump just sent the National Guard to California. Gavin Newsom didn't want him to do that. And then I was talking with a coworker, and he's like, well, it's happened before. And I'm like, you're right, it has. And then I got home, and it was like, no, the Marines are going. That's never happened. And you're like, oh, my God, that's a whole different constitutional thing. And then you're reading about Trump going, oh, yeah, you know what? My son's going to get in the phone business, and we're going to sell gold phones. And you're like, isn't that a grift? And then it's like, hey, we may bomb Iran. Who knows what I'm going to do? Well, didn't Tulsi Gabbard say that, like, your DNI say that, like, they're not really that far away? And he goes, well, I don't really care what she says. And you're like, I just want to come home and watch a movie. I don't want to have to do this unending thing of, like, it's so tiring. It's just tiring. It's tiring to come home every day and, like,
Joe, could I recommend something to you? There's a show, it's called Shogun.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And enjoy ancient feudal Japan and all the violence that happened there. So that you don't have to live in the violence of our world.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to tell me there's no political things in Shogun at all. No. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll watch Andor. And then I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't watch Andor. I'll just be like, ugh. I don't know. It's
No, Andor's a little bit on the nose.
yeah, it's like right there. Yeah, I think what I like this article, it was a global conflict tracker. And they do like the history. I just went to the recent events. I'll say this. There was a deal that Trump did make them sign, the JPOC or whatever, the weird acronym for that.
No, that's signed before he got to office. The year before.
Obama did it. That's right. It was Obama's plan. But it seemed like he was kind of...
JPAOC.
Yeah,
JCPOA.
Yeah, JCPOA. See? All these acronyms. But I'll just say, like, it's one of those things. It's like, well, you had something there. And like I told you when we initially talked about this and we didn't know as much as we know now, something, in my opinion, is better than nothing. So if these people are going in and inspecting stuff, they at least have a window in to, like, okay, they kind of put something under the rug, but, like, we have a scope of, like, what they're doing, apparently. Instead of it being just a black hole that we know nothing about. Like, if this does escalate and they decide to go underground, which again is one scenario that could happen, we may not know what they're doing. And it's like,
so the argument is made, right? Like, well, they're hiding everything from the inspectors. But then you make the counter argument of like, well, but we have inspectors in the country, and so
and they're allowing them in.
Opportunity to still see something of what's going on. Like, we have a better idea of what the reality is on the ground than if we're not there. Because all we can do if we're not there is speculate. And we're still watching with satellites. So I still think it's better if we've got inspectors in. We're able to look at it. Especially if we're watching with satellites and we're like, hey, this spot over here looks suspicious. You've got 2 weeks to let us in. And I think in the JCPOA, the agreement was 24 days. I think that's pretty long and generous. I think you can hide stuff. But I will also say that building and developing nuclear weapons is a giant and extremely complex industrial process and
Yeah, you need
technical process. It's very difficult to move
you need like
that highly
centrifuges and a
sensitive
yeah.
manufacturing equipment.
Yeah,
Like very difficult. I don't know
it's gonna be
what
like
kind
a
of centrifuges what they're doing,
it's,
but
it's
like
gonna be like a
that.
horror movie where they're like put a rug over it. So they're not gonna be able to like yeah put it like a car tarp over like the ballistic missile.
Oh, that no, that's a brick wall. Well, it kind of looks like a tarp painted like a brick
Yeah, and
wall.
someone touches it and it falls
Can
over
we
and
see
there's a
that
missile
behind that
sitting there.
curtain there? No,
Yeah,
no,
it's
a brick wall. You're fine. Don't
yeah.
ignore that.
Yeah, I don't know. I would
Meanwhile,
recommend.
there's a bunny and a bald guy behind it.
Yeah, I would recommend people look at this article because I think it is pretty concise and it kind of goes through each step of the
I enjoyed.
process.
I shouldn't say enjoyed it. I thought it was very informative, and it
Pretty.
didn't have too heavy of a
Yeah,
slant.
all I did is I looked at the recent developments, but after this, I might when I get my sanity like tomorrow night when because I'm such a cool guy that I have to read Global Conflict Tracker on Friday night because I don't have a lot going on. Maybe I'll read like
Sounds like you got a
the
pretty busy night, man.
yeah
Like that's
well
happening.
yeah we're doing it. I'm gonna crack a beer and be like I got to drink to get through this. Maybe I'll have a cranberry vodka or something. So let's just get to the Ben Rhodes thing because we've said it, and we'll just do part of this. I really like the Bulwark. I kind of said it before, but I think this is really good. I think Ben Rhodes is very good at this, and I think we're just gonna start with Tim Miller. Just like after he introduces him, he talks to it. It's like I think I clipped like 2 minutes of this or something, so
Her assessment
All
on
right,
the
let's see
state
the
of play.
clip.
you can see it.
Well,
Yep.
look, we're in this incredibly dangerous and volatile moment, Tim. I mean, we don't know whether the United States is going to enter the war today or tomorrow. It seems like we're poised on that precipice. I mean, in terms of the state of play, look, I don't think Israel had to bomb Iran right now. There was no, despite they haven't really tried to put out some kind of credible intelligence case that Iran was just about to acquire a nuclear weapon beyond what they always say. The reality is that they've been living with an Iran with a nuclear program for a very long time. It would take Iran, estimates range from months into years to both acquire enough nuclear fuel for a weapon, but also to weaponize that fuel, put it on a warhead. That was not about to happen. And Trump literally had an ongoing negotiation and had a meeting set up in Oman where it seemed like they were probably going to get some kind of deal. And so, to me, what Israel did was not some 5D chess move by Trump where he was running a psyop on all of us with Steve Witkoff. I mean, Trump clearly wanted that deal. So they basically bombed Iran before it was necessary in a manner that put an end to diplomacy. And I've been in some of these simulations, Tim. This happens in all of them, right? They get to a point where they say, okay, we bloodied their nose, and now we need the U.S. to come in and drop its big bomb on Fordo, and that's where we are.
So you're not buying the story from the Trump administration. I've been intrigued that all my former friends, all the hawks who stayed in the Republican Party in good standing, are very excited to share that story. That like Donald Trump was, doing a ploy on the media and the Iranians, where he brought them into his little mousetrap. He put some cheese in there for the Ayatollah, and was just being bad cop or good cop rather. You don't think that's that?
Tim, what is more plausible to you? That Donald Trump and the people around him had the extraordinary discipline to go through a total decoy, months-long diplomatic effort to arrive at a deal with Iran that their Saudi and Emirati friends supported, while actually laying this trap and being disciplined enough not to leak it or tell anybody about it, or that Bibi Netanyahu, over Trump's objections, bombed those facilities. Trump was watching, as has been reported, Fox News. The war looked pretty good on Fox News. He saw some people saying that this was a great thing. And then he started calling reporters on the phone and saying, hey, actually, I've been running this PSYOP the whole time. I'm for this. And then all of his hawkish, circle, which is only half the circle, and we can get into that, starts banging on him to drop the big bomb on Fordo. And he's in a bind now because he didn't want to be here, but that's where he is. I'm going to bet on the latter scenario being the one, not the PSYOP one.
I'm going to bet on the latter scenario too. When you put it like that, it seems more likely that Trump was watching Fox and thought he could get in on a winner.
So there you go. That's the clip. I mean, he lays out a pretty compelling case for what happened. You know, the idea that, I don't know. Again, squishy liberal. I'm a squishy liberal. But, I mean,
Great pause of Tim Miller there, by the way, Tim.
Oh, I know. Maybe I should... Sorry, Tim. I apologize. We're done here. But, yeah, so, like, I think he laid out a really plausible thing of, like, hey, I don't think this is, like, 5D chess. You know, I don't think this is... I don't think this is somehow Trump played everybody. So, yeah, that's just what I think. I don't think Trump played anybody. I think he kind of got.
I mean, I agree with Ben, and apparently Tim here too. Probably not surprising. I really do think Trump was after the deal. Like I said, I think Netanyahu, as they keep calling Bibi, I feel like Netanyahu was really pursuing, or not pursuing. I think Netanyahu was motivated to stop that deal from happening because Iran is their ideological enemy.
Right.
And they've always kind of hated each other. I shouldn't say always, but for a very long time, the two countries have kind of hated each other. At least
Yeah,
the
I mean,
leadership kind of has.
Daily Show did a really
Fighting proxy wars for years.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Daily Show, but they just like they have DVR and they just compiled a clip of Bibi through the years saying, "Hey, Iran's really close." You know, like in the late '90s and 2000s and the 2010s. It's just like it just keeps the hits keep on coming at him, just going, "Hey, they're so close." You're like, okay, well.
And again, right? Like I don't think anyone here is saying like, well, Iran should have a nuclear weapon. But I do think there are a lot of people, I mean, you included, I believe, making the argument that one, Iran should have the ability to have nuclear energy.
Yep.
But two, like they should have it for medical research purposes and medical treatment purposes, as you brought up.
And power plants, they didn't want to do nuclear power plants.
But how do you negotiate around those kind of things, right? Like, okay, you can have those, but we're going to control the fuel. Like we import the fuel, we finalize the construction. Like you can build the plants, but the fuel is controlled by us.
Yeah, I mean, with the like,
IAEA.
Yeah, the inspectors come back in, make sure you're on the up and up. You know, we bring the fuel in with the inspectors, stuff like that. So.
Right, like, how do you negotiate around that? Like, if they're negotiating in good faith, like we wanna negotiate in good faith. I feel like there's a belief broadly in our culture, and by our culture I mean the West in general, that Iran is not operating in good faith. I think there's a broad cultural belief that Iran is a deceptive country from a negotiation standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I'm many, not Ben Rhodes, but other people, like other diplomats, have said, listen, like they're trying to take the high road, going, yeah, that's true, but like we have, as a nation, we have things we want as well, and Iran does as well, and so sooner or later you have to work with your enemies, and you have to shake hands, and you have to go, okay, this is the best we can do. And like you listen to the whole interview, Ben Rhodes said later, hey, yeah, it was an interview I heard today with the Pod Save America people. They were like, listen, was the IAEA inspectors, was it, flawed? Yes. But a flawed, truce or negotiating agreement or, diplomatic agreement between two countries is better than war. So it's flawed, but we could work on it from there. Or do we just want to go to war? Like, so,
build upon it.
Yeah. You go, okay, well, this sucks, but like, this is a starting point and we'll work from here, and I think that'll bring us, I mean, it's a little bit earlier in the show, but this whole idea too of, I don't know if I can get rid of it. Let's see if I can find it here, right here. Boom. The whole MAGA base now is kind of losing their mind when it comes to, what
Just in case you're trying to share that screen, you're still sharing the global conflict tracker.
Oh, am I? Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, you probably need to change what you're sharing, not changed on your display.
I did. I thought
in Discord.
I was. Hang on. Oh, that's weird. Well, I just wanted to share it for the video. I'll stop sharing it. screen because we could read along with the article. There we go. Boom. I'll just that probably screwed up my whole OBS thing. Yeah. Oh well. But I think right now, I mean, the thing is like the whole, the MAGA people are losing their minds now because it's like, what are we doing here? I thought we were, we were.
Trump ran on ending wars and not getting us into any more wars, and here we are 6 months in, on the verge of getting into another war, a big one.
Yeah.
If we get into this, it is not going to be small. And if we want to protect Israel, Israel is substantially smaller than Iran. Like, we will most definitely end up with boots in the ground. It will escalate.
Yeah. Which, yeah, and I think that's...
If we get into it.
Right.
If we get into it.
I watched Nick Freitas, who's a right-wing, like, kind of MAGA light. He's met the president, though. He was a lawmaker in Virginia, I think, or West Virginia for a while, like a decade. He's former military. He's got his own YouTube channel. He talked about it, got really in the weeds. It sounds like he was like, I give Trump the benefit of the doubt, and I think he's acting in good faith, and I don't want boots on the ground either, but if it happens, I trust Trump will do the right thing, basically. And there was a lot of weird. It was a long, like, he's got a producer that went on, started talking about his dissertation in high school about like European and Prussian history and how the supply lines were affected. And I thought, okay, where are we going with this? But he talked about manufacturing, and we don't manufacture stuff domestically just like back then, and that's what caused them to lose the war. And I thought, wow, that's a left turn onto this on-ramp. But I think there is this consternation within the MAGA coalition about like, hey, I thought you ran, you said that like no more wars, you were going to solve the Ukraine one in 48 hours, and like the Gaza... Yeah, 24 hours. But then he said he was just kidding about that it was hyperbole, it was a joke. Just for jokesies, he thought, I'll just tell people I'm going to solve the war. He did that, and then Gaza's happening. He still talked about that. He said a lot of things that upset a lot of people on that about, hey, maybe we'll make it a resort town. Didn't go over well. Even MAGA people were like, why would we make a resort town over? Like, where are we going to put all these people? One thing that I did want to bring up that somebody that I listened to brought up, if you hate immigration now, imagine if you displace some people from Iran around the world. So a country of 90 million people in a war-torn area flee to find somewhere safer. If you want to control immigration now, how is that going to affect international immigration? It could affect us. It could affect Europe. You get all these refugees coming in a country of 90...
I mean, we wouldn't take any Iranian citizens in that context. They would be our enemy.
Right. Good.
Now, other countries would take them, and they would have utter strain and stress, or would they not? Would they turn them away? Right? Would Russia take them? Would Russia turn them away? Like, would the other Arab nations take them, or would the other Arab nations turn them away? They're already not being very friendly to Palestinians.
Right.
So my guess is the other Arab nations wouldn't be welcoming them with open arms. I'm sure Iraq wouldn't.
No. Probably not, because they fought. They had a war together. Yeah.
No, they don't. They also don't like each other. Yeah. I mean, it's been decades, so I don't know, maybe that's water under the bridge. But not only the immigration aspect of it, but or not only Iran, but also Israel, right? Like, Israel would also be in a conflict at that point. There'd be way more bombings, missiles. It's already happening, right? Yeah. Where the Israeli people run.
Well, they're in bomb shelters right now. People have died, and they're in bomb shelters. Like, I've seen the reports. People are hanging out. Which, again, there was a lot of people when the Gaza thing started. They said, "Listen, this isn't going to make your country any safer. Any kind of escalation in any area." And what I think is really bold, if you think about this, they're already trying to deal with Gaza. They've flared tensions in the West Bank. The settlers are burning homes, throwing Palestinians out of the West Bank. And now they're like, we should go after Iran right now. They've already called up reservists a few times. That's why they really want us to be like, hey, could America help us out? Because we're kind of stretched thin right now. So it's like...
Well, it's not even that, too, right? Like, like I said, I think Bibi's looking at this. Netanyahu's looking at this like, okay, I can't let this deal go down because that's not good for me. But as we talked about with the Gaza conflict too, like Netanyahu is under investigations for corruption and all kinds of other stuff. Like he needs war.
Yeah, yeah,
It's the only way he can protect himself.
yeah.
Oh no, I'm the wartime leader. Like I need to be here to win it. I'm the only one who can lead this and who will stand up and defend us. Everyone else wants to back down. They're all weak.
What about, what was I going to say? What about, have you seen all these clips of him going on like CNN and stuff? And he's like, well, President Trump's done a great job, but he has to decide what's right for the country. And I'm like,
Oh, you told me that.
I was like, you really know how to butter the guy up, which works. It works with Trump. If you're like, oh, he's great, you're great, but we really need your help. You're great. I don't know. I just think it's one of those things where it's like, the Tucker Carlson thing. I've only seen the clip that everybody shared because I guess the full episode dropped like a day later. He just pulled out that clip to promote the show. And so I don't know if you can watch it.
You got pretty tough on Ted Cruz there.
Yeah. I bet you Ted Cruz, like after they were like, hey, cut. Ted Cruz probably like, what the heck was that? I thought we were going to talk about recipes and, like it was going to be, what I mean? It was going to be like a softball. I thought we were going to talk about the big, beautiful bill and all this stuff. Like, and it didn't. Yeah. Apparently, I was listening to Pod Save America, and one of the guys goes, here's how you know John Favreau is excited. He came to my desk this morning and said, hey, Tommy, guess who came to the White House this morning? Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon went to the White House, and he's one of those guys that's like, we don't need to get into other foreign wars. So he went to the White House, so it's like he's probably going to meet with the president and be like, what are you doing? Hopefully. Mm-hmm. And so, and a lot of people have said, too, it was on Breaking Points and stuff, they mentioned, like, hey, if Trump does go to war with Iran, Tulsi needs to resign, right? Because her whole thing was, we don't need to get entangled in these forever wars. I told you they don't have a nuclear weapon. Nuclear weapons are bad. Don't you think she needs to resign if he's like, we're going to war with Iran? She's like, okay, I'm out then.
We've had a couple of very vocal Trump supporters that I would say were specific election Trump supporters. So they wouldn't necessarily be Trump supporters at different times in their life. Come out and apologize and say they regret it. Who's the comedian on Breaking Points that
Dave Smith
came out and said like if we go to war, like we need to impeach him?
Yeah, Dave Smith said that. Yeah,
I think it was a different video I watched where someone was talking about Trump is talking about an executive order to attack Iran, of which there is no clause or anything that allows the president to declare war with an executive action. Right. If I'm remembering correctly, and I need to dig into this, man, and my civics is old, the president does have the ability to send a certain small amount of troops rapidly for an incident, but still needs Congress to back him up after 30 days or 60 days or something like that.
Right. Nick Freitas actually talked about this because he's former military, and being a lawmaker, he said, it's you can do things for like certain actions, but like if you want to get, he had the technical term. He's like, if you get this many battalions out there, that's Congress. So I said, I hope if he does this, that he, and I hope so too, because, just like Iraq, it was like, hey, trust us, and it was like, no, like we got to go through this, and we've already been. I think that's what's really some of the MAGA movement. I mean, for me, I thought about it, and people have done supercuts of, what people have said about this conflict. Well, if we just got to do it, and they've cut the Iraq war propaganda of like what do you want our mistake to be a mushroom cloud or whatever George W. Bush said. The smoke. He said the smoking gun could be a mushroom cloud over a major city. Is like one of George W. Bush's old speeches he gave, and so there's that kind of rhetoric that's kind of like circling again. Glenn Beck, by the way, is losing his mind, and he thinks like the people of Iran are for death and we're for life. So you just have to ask yourself, are you for life or are you for death? And I thought, Glenn, what's going on, bud? It's one of those things where you're like, what's happening, Glenn? You got the chalkboards.
I've probably said this before. I'm probably repeating myself. So anyone who follows this regularly is probably going to be like, Avin, shut up. But like, I really used to enjoy listening to Glenn Beck. I really appreciated his perspective. I didn't necessarily agree with him on everything, but I really trusted that he was like making these decisions based off of principles and values.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I think he's just like following the winds of his followers. Like I really think this is audience capture. And he just needs to make sure he keeps those checks coming in so he can pay his people and,
Yeah, I thought
keep
about
developing his giant ranch.
Oh, he does, doesn't he? He's got a nice. He's,
Like,
he's in Texas,
I feel
though,
like
right?
he's abandoned his principles. Like,
Yeah, 'cause he
just
said
seems
Trump-
so fluid. He doesn't seem to be holding his ground on anything.
Yeah.
Like, come on, Glenn.
Oh, he's got that, dude. He's got the chalkboards back out. He's telling me about the Great Reset that started This is an 80-year plan. Let me walk you through it. And as soon as he got up, I was like, no, don't do it. Well, the thumbnail got me because it showed the chalkboard. And I was like, there's no way he's bringing that. And he did. He did it, Avin. He got me. He was like sitting at the desk doing the wonder to the camera. Like, let me tell you about what everybody's been going to the Great Reset. Let me show you. And he got up and I go, here we go, man. And he had the chalkboard with the timeline and the things in different chalks because, it's.
So one aspect, like, I enjoy that. I think that's pretty cool, like connecting things together. The other problem as I've gotten older is I look at that though and I'm like, but this is all circumstantial.
Yeah.
Right? Like these are all like this is a lot of circumstantial stuff that all ties together and you could interpret it that way, but there's no actual solid evidence tying any of it together. And you're treating it like it's solid evidence.
Yeah, I'll say this too, and I kind of said it lightly, I think a couple episodes ago, but I will say this, and there will be a big asterisk by this. So, when Trump's cabinet's getting confirmed, it's literally just a open revolving door of them just going through. Nobody's objecting. Kash Patel, I was like, oh man, here's a guy who, he's red-pilled. He'll do whatever Trump says. And then he's like, well, I need a deputy FBI director. Why don't I pull a podcaster named Dan Bongino? It's probably one of the angriest people I've ever heard in my life. Just rant about the deep state. Well, guess what, Dan? You're part of the deep state now. Also, I will say they seem to genuinely be working a bit. Like, they're doing the Epstein thing, and they're like, listen, he killed himself. Like, I've looked at the files. Like, Kash Patel's like, I looked at this. He offed himself. But again, MAGA world's going to be like, oh, they're hiding something. Or now the deep state's got them or whatever, right?
Is there a tie-in to the Iran conversation on this?
What I'm saying is there's all these people like Glenn and like Ted, well, Ted maybe a little bit less, but like all these people on the outside saying we got to do it. This is existential. They're going to nuke whatever. And it's like, but when you start working for a living and like doing the job, like Tulsi Gabbard collating this report, talking to people going, "Hey, they don't have a bomb." And Trump just going, "Well, whatever." And so all these pundits that are like, we should do it. It's like, that's why, again, Ben Rhodes is a squishy lefty, but he's like, let me tell you how this works. Like, we've run through simulations. We've
Who's
done
in
this.
his ear, right? Is this a Miller thing? Like, I feel like I read something that Miller's against it, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but like, who's in his ear that's pushing him towards it, right? Apparently, like you said, it went well on Fox News. I saw something that said the American public is in support of it, but I really don't know if I
think like 20% I heard, like even Republicans. My point is this, like, it's easy to bluster, governing is hard. And when these people really sit down to like read the information and say like, hey, we have to do this, like Dan Bongino and Kash Patel are like, hey, we're sorry, but like he did kill himself. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, we're in the office reading the files, and the people that really want to do this.
And the MAGA's people are out there saying like, they threatened him, man. Like, he can't say it. Did you see the fear in his face when he said that?
Yeah, there is another.
I was reading our comments like that.
Yeah, my point is like, yeah, again, all this stuff is theoretical till you have to do it. And I really beseech people to think about it. If you're listening to this and you're like, why, we don't want them to have a nuclear bomb. It's like, again, we're kind of repeating ourselves. We did this with Iraq and Afghanistan, and ask yourself how well that went. And two, like, to go back to Ben Rhodes, when he said, why now? If they have been next to Iran for this many years and kind of known about what they're doing, like, why today? Well, it's because, Netanyahu did...
If you listen to Netanyahu, it's because they're almost there. They're days away.
Right, but if you look at Netanyahu, they did the terror attack against Hezbollah, right? So they did the beeper phone thing where they took out the Houthis agreed to stop for a while, Now they took out. Remember when Israel shot somebody in like one of the Iranian embassy? They like did a missile strike on the embassy, and then there was a whole thing of like, well, it really wasn't an embassy. It was just a building. Yeah, it was something that you're like, well, it was like their home turf, right? So like that's weird. Anyway, I think Netanyahu's making listen, he's making the calculation. We've done this. We've weakened this. We've taken this out. If we're gonna do it, we need to do it now. Like Iran's, they're the last whatever.
They're on the back foot. I mean, they're definitely on the back foot. They're in a weak position. The United States is an adamant non-first strike country, right? We are, at least we're supposed to be a non-first strike country. We're not supposed to strike first. That's like our policy. We don't do that. The reality of it is, right? You look at Iraq War, number 2, that was us. Iraq War number 1, right? Saddam invaded Kuwait, and we used that as a pretext to go in and beat him back. And I shouldn't even say as a pretext. I mean, that's what we did. We pushed them back, and then we left them. We didn't do regime change. We didn't go out and get Saddam. We didn't hunt them down. And so I think Iraq War number 2 is really probably a turning point for us in actual practice of policy versus what we say policy is.
Yeah, and Afghanistan. Like, why are we doing this? We're.
Well, I mean, the argument for Afghanistan is a little bit different, right? Like, it's kind of like Russia's special military action. We were really going in to hunt down like the terrorist training camps and the terrorists. We weren't really going after government, but then we suddenly pivoted to going after the government because the Taliban were supporting this, and we need to uproot them. And I might be remembering poorly, but I don't remember it being initially like we were going out to topple the government of Afghanistan.
No, it was like because I remember Hearts and Minds came much later in the conflict. The whole Hearts and Minds campaign, where it wasn't day one. It was like, what are we doing? Oh, we're doing this. Then it was like Hearts and Minds, and then that was later. And I don't know. My point is this: like, if you're on the sidelines and you go, yeah, we should do this, it's like that is a big deal, and it is a big commitment. And I hope Steve Bannon or somebody says, listen, you want to have a legacy. Is this the legacy you want? Because you have to do this 100%. You can't just, unless everything works out properly, you drop that big bomb and they come out with a white flag, what percentage of chance do you think that's going to be? Because I don't want to have boots on the ground and send carriers over there and troops on the hope that they come out of that cave with a white flag, or they just start shooting missiles again, And this time they go after service members. Because if you drop that bomb on that mountain, we've evacuated some of our bases. But they're obviously, if I was them, I'd say, okay, shoot the U.S. bases. Shoot missiles at them.
Well, I mean, we've dragged ourselves into the conflict at that point in time, right?
Yeah.
Like we are making ourselves combatants if we strike. Now, the other aspect of it, right, on that legacy standpoint, right, what are the end results of this kind of a conflict? We're fighting in Iranian territory. They're launching missiles, but eventually, right, we're going to want to destroy that. So there's going to be tons of airstrikes, and standard warfighting doctrine for us is air superiority, destroy their air defenses, do airstrikes to destroy their ground defenses, and then we roll in with men and tanks. Warfare's changed. How well will the American military pivot to a drone-based warfare? Iran is very drone-heavy, right? Like the Jihad drones. I might be getting the name wrong. Jihad.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That Russia's using, right? That's an Iranian design that they licensed and are building. And Americans will die.
Yeah.
I'll get involved in that.
I'll say this: there's one special sauce that I've been hearing about, but I haven't heard any major reporting. I've just heard random stories, and that is
cane sauce.
Yeah, they're gonna run at them with wild bears. I don't know. That'd be crazy. It's like that bear's got rabies. Just send him in. No, it kind of goes to this MAGA point: the idea that there is some growing discontentment within the military. There's been some reports coming out that the Marines that got sent to Cali were like, why are we here? Because, we can't arrest citizens and we're not going to shoot them. So then they were like, okay, go to that federal building. And they're like, we're just standing here. Why are we ICE is doing this it's got to be an invasion or necessary, and we're kind of just standing here. So there's been this background discussion of like, we're unhappy, and so I wonder, yes.
I know if I were infantryman, any form of soldier that were sent in that National Guard, Army, Marines, I would definitely be like, why am I here? Because I didn't join the military to shoot Americans.
Yeah, or at least, I mean...
Or protesters.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, maybe they're unruly, right? They're burning Waymo for one reason or another. Lord knows why you're deciding to pick on Waymo.
It looks great. I haven't been in one yet, but they look great. I'm interested to ride one for
the burned out poles?
No, not the burned Waymos, the actual ones that still drive around that like you see.
Right, like, and I get the argument, right? Like we're sending the military to defend our federal buildings, and they're specifically targeting our federal buildings, right? You look at CHOP, and they were specifically targeting police buildings when they were up here, so they built their barriers around that to protect that. Like I kind of understand that argument a little bit. I've read reports from some people that are like, yeah, it's a super peaceful protest. Like we walked, we chatted, we said our chants, we waved our signs. Like not a whole lot happened. There's only a little targeted area of violence. And then I've heard other reports of people that are on the other end of it. Were like, I'm going to get the evidence. And like they do see unruly behavior and crowds that are getting way out of hand that shouldn't be. So I still don't think, like, it's still not the military's purview. Like, that's the local PD. Was the local PD overrun?
There was...
Yes, the president ultimately is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. I think the court case that Newsom brought up, like, hey, you can't send the guard, that's my call. I think, if I remember correctly, like, the judges in that basically were like, there's no precedent for that. Like, that's just an assumption. Like point it to me in the law. And they couldn't. Because there is no real law that states that, apparently, which is why it got overturned pretty quickly, or rejected. It just seems to violate the principles of who we are as a country. It seems so politically motivated, like, these crazy leftists, I'm going to use the military to oppress them. It just doesn't feel American. Yeah.
Yeah, and the lawmakers we've seen on video getting thrown to the ground by some officers, maybe ICE, some of them won't show their ID. I don't know if you saw the newest one. There was a New York comptroller. One of the guys was in a full...
He was literally asking for the warrant, and they arrested him for asking for the warrant. He was being pretty forceful about it, but they said he assaulted the officer.
He was holding on to the wall. He was holding on to the migrant or whatever. Whatever. Well, also... a lot of people are talking about, too, the fact that some of these ICE people don't show their face. Like that one, the comptroller, full mask. You don't know who he is. He doesn't have his badge. And some people, there's been reports of people pretending to be ICE agents and like fake arresting people and putting handcuffs on people, And so there's this massive distrust of the system, of like, show your badge. And somebody brought this up. They go, yeah, those ICE people, they have masks on and stuff. They were talking about they were at the LA. It was like, they had the No King's Day or whatever. And there's reports of people going like, hey, I'm here. I'm peacefully protesting. I have a sign. You see those ICE people? They have masks on because they said they're going to get doxxed and they're going to get, whatever. They're going to get harassed. All those military people, I can see their faces. So what's the difference between them doing it or these ICE people? Why are they just wearing, safety glasses or whatever, the shaded safety glasses? Why do you have to have a full mask on? That's even more... fascist-like, of like, you have to cover your face. What, are you scared of something?
I wonder what the sense is within ICE, right? Are you running into issues where you've got ICE officers that are getting fired or leaving because they don't agree with it?
I just heard a report.
They think it's extreme?
I heard a report today that some of them are like, we did want to go after the criminals, but their morale is getting low because it's like, we'll just go to the parking lots and arrest the people that are trying to get day work. And they're like,
they're being given quotas and told they have to get X many people out in X period of time, and so now they're just looking for where the easiest people to grab are.
Right, and they're like, that's not what I signed up for. I like, we literally want to do the work of you build a case, you go after someone. Oh, this guy's a drug dealer, and he's an illegal immigrant. We need to go after this. We need to bust a ring. We need to deport all of them. We need to do the important work, but that takes 100 hours. That's what I heard the report. The guy's like, this takes hundreds of hours and you're just having us round up people. Apparently the other day a U.S. Marshal got arrested.
Because he looked like an immigrant.
He was off white. I'll say he was somewhat brown, and so they just
Oh.
so that's not bad at all.
And of course, they apologized and let him go once they figured out who he was.
I didn't hear that part. I just heard he got arrested. He probably got detained. They started looking through his ID and go, "Get out of here! Get out of here!" Like, I don't know. I don't know what happened. I'll try to
I've heard
find.
lots of stories where they've arrested people that are legit, like documented citizens and or like officers, where they arrest them, they don't listen to them, they won't look at ID or anything, and then apologize and let them go when they figure out who they are.
Well, that famous streamer Hassan Piker, big lefty, streams like 8 hours a day. He was coming back from Paris and he got detained. He was coming back from Paris with his family through Chicago and got detained.
That doesn't surprise me.
I'm like, man, that's not good at all. I don't know. Well, we're coming to the end of the episode. Avin, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen? I mean, we don't really do predictions on this show, but what do you think in the next couple of days? What do you think is going to happen? Trump said he's going to wait 2 weeks to decide what to do with Iran, which, man, that's got to just make Netanyahu so mad. 2 weeks, really?
Really measured. That seems really measured, and that actually makes me happy that there's a pause in there. It's not a quick, snap, emotional decision.
Yeah, I'm sure Netanyahu's really pissed, but oh well.
I mean, but you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Like, that's Netanyahu's problem. He is the one who did it, and he's got to pay the consequence. You know what? He's the one who did it, and he's not going to pay the consequences. His citizens are.
Yeah, because they're getting bombed.
Primary
Well, they already
job
are.
is protecting his people. Now he's making the case that this is protecting his people, but Israeli citizens are dying
Yeah, they're already dying.
because of the choices he made.
Well, there's like, I think a dozen people so far that have died, I think is what I
That
heard.
was in the 20s.
Yeah, maybe.
But even still, it's way less than what's happening in Iran. Like, innocent people in Iran are dying. They're targeting the generals and the commanders and the leaders. They're targeting the scientists, and of course, collateral damage. They're killing other people around them.
Oh, did you hear about their covert ops thing they're doing? Israel. I mean, they've done it before, but the scientists, how they took them out. Some of them they bombed them, but some of them they just put a car bomb in their car. So the scientists would just come out to their car to like go home, and the car would blow up. So that's above board, I guess.
I believe it. I mean, it's a very Mossad way of doing things, right? And, I am not an anti-Israel person. You know that. But I am not okay with the way Israel's been behaving for the last few years.
The government, yeah.
Like,
I mean, they'll get up.
the Israeli government, yes,
Yeah.
not the people, the government. What's going on with Hamas? They're right to swing back, right? Like, Hamas picked a fight, they swung, and Israel swung back, and like, that's on Hamas for doing it. Israel didn't need to go anywhere near as big of an extent or as aggressive or as hard as they did. I will say at the end of this, hopefully Hamas is no longer the government of the people in Gaza, and hopefully the Palestinian people are able to get a representative government that actually like doesn't use them as human shields, and does take care of them better. I don't know the nuance, but like, I'm an American. I think you should have the freedom of religion. I think you should have freedom to like live your life how you should, and so those are my values.
There is some footage and some reports coming. There's some footage coming out of Gaza that the survivors, the people that are still there, are marching, saying, we don't want Hamas around anymore. So
that's my point, right? So that might be a really dark and sad silver lining out of Israel's like just maintained level of aggression in this.
Yeah.
If they had just gone after some people, basically punch for punch, gone back and forth instead of like this extreme reaction, Hamas might stay in power and might continue to, and it might just drag out. So maybe there is a benefit to that. Maybe this is the right way to do it.
Yeah,
I think they're just going to make more extremists and more angry people in the future.
Yeah, I think too, though, if they do somehow get elections or the people of Palestine get a choice, they're going to be like, hey, look what just happened. We don't want any, if they have a cabinet or whatever. And I think even, they'll be like, we don't want Hamas. Nobody from Hamas. Or you get like one person at the table, if that. And even with
There will
Netanyahu.
be people that still support them.
Yeah.
Because there's anger. People have lost family members, friends, brothers, sisters, mothers, children, grandparents, right? There's going to be a massive amount of anger. So there will be people that still support Hamas and that still want to swing back and fight back. There's also going to be people, though, and hopefully it's the majority, that says, no, I'm done. I don't want this anymore. Just let me live my life. Yeah. Let me work. Let me raise my kids. Let me spend time with my wife. Like, end this. Stop this. No more killing.
Yeah, and I think even on the Israeli side, with their cabinet, all these crazy things they're saying, like their cabinet members are literally going on TV going, well, yeah, we're going to starve them. You know, we're not going to let the food in. You know, they'll go on TV and say that. You know, Ben Gvir will say, like, our plan is to starve them because we want them to leave. And I think the Israeli people, especially like the prisoners that have the captives that haven't been released, the families are going to be like, this government's got to go, man. This hasn't ended. It's been almost 2 years. You know, we're coming up on the 2-year mark. 2-year mark. You know, like we haven't got our people back. And listen, they're still going, you know, the IDF is running north and south to get Hamas because they're just recruiting more Hamas members because they're making people more angry, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's like, we don't need this anymore. So I bet you both countries are going to swing way to the left, and maybe both those leaders can sit down at the table and go, hey, man, we got to start from zero. Like, we're not, you know, this sucks. You know, like...
yeah. And there's still going to be really angry, hurt people, right? Like I didn't even realize it was going on, and someone else shared with me. I'm like, man, what's going on in Ireland is crazy.
Is it?
See, there's, like, craziness going on in Ireland. Protests, riots.
Is it their government, or?
100% know why it is. Like, that's kicking off again. And I'm like, man, I thought we were past this.
I know there's a lot of solidarity with the Palestinian people. Irish people say that all the time, that, like, you know, because they were literally subjugated by the British and stuff. So they're like, yeah, you know, our rights are your rights, stuff like that. Like, we get it, you know? Like, so, yeah.
And that would be my worry, right? Like, there's some sort of peace that comes up, right? They don't manage to force them all out through starvation.
Which is a war crime. I just want to point that out. Starving people and not letting food in is kind of a war crime.
And I'm not saying it in that context from that's a strategy I support, right? Like, understand, like, but if that's their strategy, like, assuming that fails and the people stay because they want to stay, it's their home, you know, the hope would be that whatever peace or truce or whatever comes out of it isn't so one-sided that, you know, the remaining Palestinian people initially are happy that the fighting's over and very quickly become resentful because they're not allowed to have any rights. They're not allowed to move around. They're not allowed to hold jobs. They're not, you know, they're getting harassed and inspected and patted down all the time. And like that's just a different type of oppression. And they're just going to fight again, right? Like, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I bring it up all the time. I don't remember where I heard it, but the idea of the language of the oppressed is violence. I don't like that. I don't agree with that, but it is human nature. You oppress a person long enough, the only way they have left to fight, they lose reason, is to be violent.
Yeah.
Because, like, I can't reason my way out of this. I can't negotiate my way out of this. Yeah, I'm cutting you off.
No, I mean, I was just going to say, I'm kind of where you are. I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I really do feel, because Israel has the big brother of America, there's been a lot of years and a lot of times where they're like, well, we'll get our big brother to come in and punch so-and-so for us. And I think it would be great if Trump was like, no, we're going to cut a deal with Iran. You know, I'm going to cut this deal. You know, I want a good legacy. I'm going to sit back down at the table with him and go, listen, I understand you and Israel. You know, you and Israel aren't...
Maybe, like, even say something, like, immediately afterwards, like, in the first 24 hours of, like, hey, like, Trump, maybe not directly, but, like, hey, country that has influence over Israel, like, tell them to cut it out.
Yeah. Which means, like, in a good way, like, hey, we'll still come to the table. You just need to tell them to stop. And they'll be like, all right.
Because, I mean, Israel will listen, mostly because they don't have a choice.
Well, if there's actual consequences, if we're like, yeah, we're going to stop sending you missiles. We're going to refill the dome, and that's it. You know?
I don't know. I just, there's so much death and violence being exacted on people who it really doesn't need to happen to, right? Like, Israeli citizens and people are dying. And they have for a long time, right? Hamas, Hezbollah have been lobbing missiles over the border for a super long time. But Israel isn't innocent in that. And so they've got to own their shit.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, Avin, it was depressing, but it was good to talk to you. I guess it was.
Do you feel grieved, Joe?
Yeah, it is the grief of politics. The fact that we're having to do this again. We may have some other stuff coming up in the future. I do know the thing with Curtis Yarvin, I do want to do. So maybe in a couple weeks we'll just record it and put it up, and then we'll do a big recap because. Come on, man. It's like, Trump, if you watch this, or anybody in the administration, come on. Don't you guys just want to go to work with a cup of coffee and go, okay, let's just have a chill Friday. It's casual Friday. Make sure Stephen Miller wears a Hawaiian shirt, and we'll work all this out. Let's just calm down. Let's bring it down a notch. Like, could you imagine? So someone tomorrow at the White House is going to be like, it's donut day, and it was my day to bring them in. And they're going to bring in a big thing of donuts. And everybody's just going to be putting bourbon in their coffee, just like, oh, God, why is this person still here? They're so chipper. Why do we have John the intern here? This is serious stuff, man. Yeah, I don't. Anyway, we will talk. It's not. Yeah, they're just trying to go to work. We will talk to everybody next month. Hopefully, we'll have a better episode next month. But we will see everybody then.